Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our joyful event, Hear Her Roar, the very first global women's speechathon in honor of Women's History Month. My name is Evelina Camilleri, and on behalf of the KeyNote Women's community, I'm going to be your host for the first part of our afternoon session. Co-hosting with me today is Valerie Chow. You'll meet her in a short while after the 5-minute break in about 45 minutes. This unique event is brought to you by KeyNote Women Speakers in partnership with Speaking While Female Speech Bank. Before we get started, I kindly ask you to mute your microphone, light on your camera so we can speak to a real live audience, and use the chat box at the bottom of the screen to let us know where you are from and who invited you. Feel free to cheer on our speakers with your feedbacks and impressions whenever you feel inspired to do so. And now, let me introduce the two women that made this event possible. Kamudi Goda, co-chair of KeyNote Women, and Dana Rubin, founder of Speaking While Female Speech Bank. First, over to you, Keiichi, for your welcome speech and official opening for this session.
Thank you very much, Evelina. And thank you, Anna, for the lovely start for the event. I'm Kaumudi Goda, co-chair for KeyNote. A very warm welcome to all of you from wherever you're dialing in. KeyNote is a global, purpose-driven organization with a mission to bring greater diversity to speaking stages all around the world. We do this through three things. One, we connect our speakers to speaking engagements all around the world. We do this through a free online directory that showcases the talents of our speakers through domain expertise, region, and so much more. Second, we recognize that the parameters of what thought leadership, success, and intelligence looks like must be challenged. So we recognize the accomplishments of our speakers through our various social media channels. And number three, we acknowledge not everybody wakes up in the morning ready for the kind of talk you'll see today. So we have a highly popular and almost always sold out training program called the KeyNote Speaker Training Program. So if you like what you see today, this could be you next year. Call us or reach out to our KeyNote training lead, Ivana. Sometime in December last year, I reached out and connected with Dana to explore an idea she had. What will it look like if our organizations come together and we honor the iconic voices of women from history who resulted and created changes that we are experiencing today? That's how Hear Her Roar came about. Dana brought speeches from her amazing speech archive, Speaking While Female, and I got the ACE team that KeyNote Women Speakers has to put this event together and execute it. Dana represents Speaking While Female, but living while female remains an extremely difficult and almost impossible thing in many parts of the world today. The right to be born, the right to education, the right to participate in the workforce, the right to travel freely, the right to earn a livelihood, participate in higher levels of government and organization, right to reproductive decisions of our own bodies, even the right to speak is something women have to fight for. Just last month, Yoshiro Mori, a former Prime Minister of Japan, decreed in public that women may participate and be on more boards in Japan as long as they don't speak too much and get too emotional. A 22-year-old Japanese student called Momoko Nojo decided to challenge this. She started a viral online campaign that garnered more than 150 signatures in just 2 weeks. Women have always chosen to challenge. And when they fought for the rights of others, giving up liberty and even life many times, it resulted in many of the privileges and rights we enjoy today. So as you hear our amazing women speak today, I hope you'll take a moment to reflect that all of this is the result of a lot of struggle and hard work. We have a long way to go still, but the fight is on. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, now let's hear from Dana, who has sacrificed her night's sleep. So welcome, Dana, and thank you for this beautiful idea and content that you have provided us. I'll let you introduce this initiative.
Okay, thank you, Evelina. Thank you, KG, and thank you all the amazing women that I've gotten to know at KeyNote Women. I've been so impressed and so moved and so touched, really, to get involved in this project and to feel the power of this moment. We are celebrating International Women's Day, and this truly is a global event. I'm here on the East Coast of the United States, but we have participants from literally all over the world. We have women from Singapore, women from New Zealand and Australia, women from Israel, women from Western Europe. It's a magical moment to realize that we're all here live together, participating in this celebration, supporting one another, and channeling the voices, the ideas, the intellectual firepower of women who came before us and made all this possible for us. Let me tell you just a little bit about how I got started with the Speaking While Female Speech Bank. I've been a speechwriter for many years, and it was a couple years ago that I started to realize that the history of speech has almost completely overlooked women's voices, forgotten about, overlooked, ignored, silenced the voices of women as represented in public speeches. And the way that I really realized this is because I started to look at some speech anthologies, speech collections that represent the best thinking, the best oratory through time. And what I discovered was that overwhelmingly, they ignore women's contributions. For example, the world's greatest speeches. I have my show and tell here. Lend me your ears, greatest speeches in history. Anthology of public speeches. I looked through 230 speech collections in the English language, 230, and I discovered that overwhelmingly they represent the history of public speech as a male endeavor. And it's just not true. I started doing research, I have excavated, I have dug into old out-of-print books, old journals, pamphlets, documents, newspaper archives, university archives, and what I've discovered is thousands of speeches by women, important speeches by women, some of which you're going to hear about today. So the object of our celebration today and our presentation today is to restore those women to the public sphere so that we know about them, so that you and the audience know about them, so that our children and our children's children will know about them. My goal and our goal, I speak collectively here, is that we won't have a world in the future in which girls grow up and boys grow up thinking that public speaking is only for the boys and only for men. In fact, it's for all of us. So it's in that spirit that I welcome you all to celebrate this historic moment, the first ever global women's speech-a-thon, and the first of which I hope will be many more to come. And I'm looking forward to hearing all the amazing speakers today.
Wow, thank you, Dana. I'm also so much looking forward to a next event similar to this. So this is so empowering. I feel so energized, although we have been working so much for the past 2 months. So thank you very much for such beautiful, inspiring, and empowering introductions to both of you, KG and Dana. And Dana, especially for you giving us an overview of the history of women's speech and why it is so important to celebrate this today. And now, without further ado, I'm going to get started so that we stay on track. So let me share with you what is going to happen on this first part of the event. We have actually, for the overall event, we have selected 29 speeches from the speech bank created by Dana. And 15 have already been delivered this morning. Some of you were already there, so we are happy that you're back. And 14 that you are going to hear in the second part of this event. We are honored to be able to showcase a continuum of women through the ages, speaking their own voice, presenting their point of view. And as you will hear today, historically, as we've heard from Dana, from KG earlier, historically, women have not been silent. It's just that their words have not been recorded in the history books. And with our event today, we want every girl, every woman to see what a powerful speaker looks like, read her words, and hear what she sounds like. So let's hear her roar and let's get started. So let's start with the first speech. I wait for the slide. Okay, here it is. So the first speech, the title is Speech to the Kotahi Tanga. So I wonder if you're asking what does this mean? It's a Maori word. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of the context of this speech. So this speech was delivered in 1893 by a Maori woman called Mary Tetai. Actually, the family name is also quite difficult to spell. Let me try. Manga Kaya, probably. So it's a Maori woman. She was deeply involved in politics and welfare movements in the 19th century. And to give you a little context, let me explain a little bit about the Maori history. So the Maori people have lived in New Zealand since the 14th century. But with the arrival of the European settlers in the 17th century, there were some enormous changes to the Maori way of life. I mean, initially, it was quite amicable, let's say, quite friendly, and the two cultures coexisted. But at one point in history, there was a conflict in the 1860s, and there were massive land confiscations, and the Maori began to suffer tremendous segregation, disruption, and discrimination. So this is where this speech comes in. So Mary Tetai is remembered as the first woman addressing the Maori parliament. That is called the Kotahi Tanga. So this is the speech to address the parliament. And with that speech, Mary Tetai was able to support motion in support of women being allowed to vote for and stand as members of the assembly. So you'll hear her historic words now from Jody Golden. Jody, up to you.
I move this motion before the principal member and all honourable members, so that a law may emerge from this parliament, allowing women to vote and women to be accepted as members of the parliament. Following are my reasons for presenting this motion, that women may receive the vote and that there be women members. There are women who have been widowed and own much land. There are women whose fathers have died and do not have brothers. There are women who are knowledgeable of the management of land where their husbands are not. There are women whose fathers are elderly who are also knowledgeable of the management of land and own land. There have been male leaders who have petitioned the Queen concerning the issues that affect us all. However, we have not yet been adequately compensated according to those petitions. Therefore, I pray to this gathering that women members be appointed.
Thank you, Jody. My heart is beating fast. A big round of applause for Jody. Thank you. That was quite powerful to me. So Jody Golden is the founder of Org Design Works, board member of the Organization Design Institute and Organization Design Forum, and faculty for European Organization Design Forum. She has led international teams in corporate, strategic, and operational HR management roles. Jody, What was it like for you reading such a powerful speech? Would you like to share with us?
Sure. Evelina, when I read this speech at first, I was really taken by the way that she talked about, there are women who have knowledge, there are women with something to contribute, and there are women who can bring benefits to all of us. And that really resonated for me because, for me, it's a really strongly held belief that when all of us participate and contribute, then it brings benefits back to all of us. And then when I researched this speech, and I found that when she gave this speech, this was 1893 in New Zealand, as you had said, to the Maori Parliament. And this is actually the year later in that year when New Zealand gave women the vote. So this was at a moment in time on the verge of something really huge that was about to change. And that gives me chills that I got to read that. So I'm really thankful for the chance.
Yeah, and it was an amazing delivery. I will need to breathe, take a deep breath before I can start. It's so inspiring and empowering to hear so many beautiful speeches. So thank you again, Jody.
Thank you.
And let's move on to the next speech and speaker. We have The Solitude of Self by Elizabeth Caddy Stanton. The struggle for women's suffrage lasted almost a century across the whole world. While the first speech was delivered in New Zealand, for this one we move on to US. And probably no woman's name is more linked to the campaign for the women's vote in America than that of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, the author of our second speech, The Solitude of Self. Elizabeth was the first president of the National Women's Suffrage Association. She served 20 years in that position, resigning in 1892 at the age of 77. And her resignation speech, The Solitude of Self, eloquently articulated the arguments for the equality of women that she had spent her adult life promoting. Elizabeth gave literally hundreds of speeches through the years, and many are considered classics of feminist thinking and ideology. But the next speech is different. It stands apart. There is no thunderous language. In this speech, Elizabeth reflects on what it is that truly makes each of us human. She identifies what she calls the solitude of self. Let's hear then from our next speaker, Florence Turk, what a woman needs to be fully the custodian of her own life. The Solitude of Self, 1892, Washington, D.C., delivered by our Florence.
The strongest reason for giving women all the opportunities for higher education, for the full development of her faculties, forces of mind and body, for giving her the most enlarged freedom of thought and action, a complete emancipation from all forms of bondage, of custom, dependence, superstition, from all the crippling influences of fear, is a solitude and personal responsibility of her own individual life. The strongest reason why we ask for women a voice in the government under which she lives, in the religion she's asked to believe in, equality in social life, where she is the chief factor, a place in the trades and profession where she may earn her own bread, is because of her birthright to self-serenity, because as an individual, she must rely on her own self. It matters not whether the solitary voyager is a man or a woman, nature having endowed them equally, leave them to their own skill and judgment in the hour of danger. And if not equal to the occasion, alike they perish. To appreciate the importance of fitting every human soul for independent action, think for a moment of the immeasurable solitude of self.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Florence. I needed to breathe again. I'm actually reading your bio. I have it in front of me, and I see that your motto is "If you want, you can." I like that. With over 13 years of experience in marketing and advertising, Florence is passionate about helping others with keynote speaking, coaching, and mentoring. Florence, how was this speech for you? How did you feel performing it?
I just every time I read this speech, I felt so empowered, and I'm so honored to be here today to actually being able to deliver it. I think we all have a role to play in, keeping the history alive and keeping all those women's work and speech and thoughts and alive and perpetuating them. And yeah, it's really it's such a beautiful speech, and I encourage everyone to go and have a read to the whole speech itself, because I found the way she speaks and the way she wrote beautifully. And so powerful. It really gives me a lot of strength just reading this.
It's beautiful. I loved it. And yeah, your suggestion is right. We all need to read the full speech to get even more this feeling. It was very nice. Thank you so much, Florence. Let's move on now to the next speech for the sake of time. And it is a great pleasure and honor for me to introduce our next speech. We are moving on a little bit forward in time to more contemporary times. And who here today has not heard of Betty Davis? Do you recognize her picture? I'm guessing most of you know who she is, and her glamorous face is so famous. She appeared on the silver screen for half a century. She was one of Hollywood's biggest stars, with more than 100 movie credits to her name. Jezebel, Now Voyager, All About Eve, Dark Victory. Now, if you haven't seen any of these stunning classic films yet, you have a lot to look forward to. But Betty Davis was also known for being tough. And isn't that what they love to say about all women with ambition? She was a risk taker. She took roles as killers, manipulators, double-crossers, playing challenging, complex characters. So not the stereotypical starlet roles that would have come so easily to such a beautiful lady like her. What most people don't know is that Betty Davis was also a skillful public speaker who used her voice to support causes she believed in. So the next speech excerpt is such an example. In 1962, she went to Washington, D.C. to testify before the U.S. House of Representatives on labor issues. And Betty Davis had strong views on the subject, as you will hear from our next speaker, Anna Kopp.
I believe firmly in the principle of equal pay for equal work without discrimination as to the sex of the person involved. The fact that anyone should find it necessary to plead the principle of equal pay for equal work, a matter of profound wonder. 3 or 4 decades ago, perhaps, but not today, in the year 1962. Democracy, I believe, bleeds a little each time when those who champion it stand idly by in the face of discrimination. The problem is when we all face in common, whatever our role in the fabric of American life. The solution to the problem is to be found only by the establishment by the Congress of the United States of firm standards for equal pay, for equal work for all persons, regardless of sex. How can we in all candor hold ourselves up as prime example of equitable conditions of work and pay when we still allow discriminatory rates of wages to exist between the sexes?
Wow, very nice. Thank you. That was Anna Kopp. Ladies and gentlemen, so Anna studied international communication at Stockholm University before moving to Germany. She has won multiple leadership awards, should say many awards like Betty Davis. And she's also a rock singer with her own band. and has released several albums. She's also an avid biker and has completed a number of adventure expeditions and desert rallies on her BMW 1200. Anna, what do you think of this speech?
I tried to put the rage into, the fire of the speech, the way she probably felt it, and that we still should have today, 60 years later, and this is not solved. If you're looking, one big conversation I was very touched by was athletes. The American US soccer team, they became world champions and they played better than all the men, and they're paid a fraction.
Yes.
And this comes in the media, and it's a big topic because they're famous people. But what about the little woman working in an industry, doing textiles in Sri Lanka and getting paid $5 per week that she has to pay for her rent to even stay there in a room, and she can't afford to have her children around her?
Yeah.
So that pay gap, as nice as it is to talk about the big bucks, millions, we need to address it because of all those women there who can hardly get by from day to day. And it's been 60 years since this speech, and it's still, every word is still true.
Yeah, it's amazing how these topics, these points are still so valid today. I mean, of course, things have improved and we appreciate. And it's also fascinating to read and hear that these things were already highlighted from other women from past generations. So it's fascinating, and of course things will get better. I am confident about that. Thank you, Anna. It's also about equality in a way. It's Discourse on Justice. It was delivered in 1790, so we have a little bit of a jump back in time, and it's by Etta Palm Dalders. She was a Dutch feminist who traveled to Paris in the late 18th century and joined the revolutionaries fighting for the end of monarchy and greater rights of the people. Although she was certainly not the only woman who used her public voice during this period, she was nevertheless quite bold and unusual for her high profile and visibility in French public life and politics. In many ways, she was very modern, very much a feminist, who understood that the political order as it existed in enlightened Western Europe was designed to support men's lives and not women's lives. She founded the first female-only organization in France. She created a salon in her home in Paris where intellectuals and political activists would meet and plan strategies. And at one point, she even served as a spy for the French Secret Service. She was said to be a powerful speaker, and at the Revolutionary National Convention in 1790, she delivered a speech on the injustice of the laws in favor of men. And delivering this speech for you today is Kamales Lardi. Please, let's welcome Kamales.
The French citizenesses, your wives, your sisters, and your mothers, gentlemen, have they not given the world a sublime example of patriotism, courage, and civic virtues? Were they not eager to sacrifice their jewelry for the need of the country? And this heroic ardor with which their delicate hands have shared the heavy work in the field of the Confederation. You have used them in your efforts to form the altar of the nation, which received the oath that consolidates this freedom, this equality, happiness, no longer only a band of brothers. Yes, gentlemen, it is women who drive your daily courage to persevere and relentlessly fight the enemies of your freedom. It is they who endow the soul of your dear children and who gathered these words on the lip of the dying victim of the nation. Live free or die.
Very powerful. Thank you. Kamales Lardi is a bold and strategic thinker in digital and business transformation. She often says, Technology is not a silver bullet solution. A clear value proposition should drive and transform any transformation effort. And this approach resonates well with many business leaders and has helped her stand out in the digital space. Kamales, would you like to share your views on this speech? Any feelings? Any opinion?
Definitely, Evelina. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's quite an honor to be speaking here amongst so many women and to share such a powerful speech as well. I have to say, I'm usually one of the only women on stage when we talk about public speaking or presenting in a technology or business-driven event. And I'm also usually one of the only women in a band of brothers, particularly when I'm speaking at a corporate event or amongst board members and C-level executives. And I think this speech is so powerful because it was from 1790, but the issues are so relevant even today. We're still seeing this recognition of women's contributions in technology, in digital, just not being showcased enough. And so I feel very close to this speech as well. And I selected it particularly because I felt this need to be bold and this need to call for recognition of the work that women do in digital, in technology, and in business in general. It needs to be there and we need to drive it further.
Wow, it's amazing that we still discuss same issues after so many years, but the change is there in the air. So we hope that this will improve. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well.
Let's move on to the next speech. Ines Milholland, Appeal to Women Voters of the West, 1916. Ines Milholland is considered the face of suffrage in the US. She was also considered a great beauty, and actually throughout her life, she was quite disappointed that it was most of the time she got recognition because of her beauty rather than her ideas and actions. She became a lawyer and investigated prison abuses. She was also a very strong speaker and used these skills to speak out for suffrage constantly. She would travel by train, speak, sleep overnight on the train, speak again, get back on the train, and she undertook the speaking despite not feeling well. And on October 22nd, 1916, the day of this speech, as she was speaking in Los Angeles when she collapsed in the middle of her speech, and she was rushed to the hospital. And that was her last speech. She died a month later. The last words you will hear in the speech, I will say a little word now to help you follow. The last words were addressed to President Wilson. So she will say, Mr. President, how long must women wait for liberty? And these words were adopted as the slogan of the US suffrage movement, who saw her as a martyr for the cause. So in homage to Ines Milholland, the so-called silent sentinels stood outside the White House for 13 months in the heat and in the rain, in the icy snow, with a sign that said, Mr. President, how long must women wait for liberty? Ruchi is going to perform for you this speech from Ines Milholland, Appeal to Women Voters of the West. So let's go back in time to 1916 and let's welcome Ruchi.
Thank you so much, Evelina. It's an honor being here. I will start. The unenfranchised women of the nation, we appeal to you for help in our fight for political freedom. We appeal to you, for you alone have both the power and the will. Therefore, women of the West, let no free woman, let no woman that respects herself and womankind lend her strength to the Democratic Party that turns away its face from justice from the women of the nation. Now, for the first time in our history, women have the power to force their demands and the weapon with which to fight for women's liberations. You, women of the West who possess this power, will you use it on our behalf? It is only for a little while. Soon the fight will be over, victory is in sight. whether we shall win and whether we shall deserve to win. We have no money, no elaborate organization, nobody interested in our success, except the anxious-hearted women across the country that cannot come to the battle lines themselves. Only the hopes of women have we, and our own spirit and a mighty principle. We have only our chains to lose and a whole nation to gain. How long, Mr. President, must women wait for liberty?
Wow, thank you, Ruchi. I felt like we were hearing the words directly from Ines Milholland. It was really powerful. Ruchi is an associate, a certified coach, NLP practitioner, keynote speaker, accredited well-being facilitator, and a lawyer. She helps high potential professionals build emotional resilience and a positive mindset to get to the next level in their lives personally and professionally. I wonder what you would like to share. I'm not going to ask a question. Tell us, what would you like to share about this speech?
When this speech was sent to me, I felt it was the perfect one picked for me for two reasons. First being that Inez herself was a lawyer and I'm a lawyer too.
Oh.
And you know, I come from a country where till date we are fighting and asking for women's rights. And it felt like it was apt for me. We yet have situations in our country where there's female infanticide, there are practices like dowry, there's child marriage, there is a ban on widow remarriage. It is yet where we fight for women's rights. So it was such a speech that was so close and dear to my heart that I felt so blessed and lucky to be chosen to speak on this topic. So thank you. Thank you for giving me this honor and making me a part of this amazing event. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so happy that this was the perfect speech for you. And I think that there's so many other perfect speeches for everyone because we can easily relate to all of these speeches. So the more we read, the more we will relate. It's amazing. This speech bank is truly amazing. And we look forward to read more from these speeches.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruchi.
Thank you so much.
And now, let's see which one. Oh, the next one is Angels of the Home. And it's from Agnes MacPhail, 1925. Agnes MacPhail was a Canadian politician who was active in politics all her life. She was the first woman to break into the House of Commons in Canada. That was in 1921, and she served as an MP until 1940. So quite a long time. She organized events, wrote newspaper pieces and columns, and used her voice to speak out. She also had a legendary sense of humor, which is evident in the speech you are going to hear today. It's a speech excerpt from 1925. The idea of the angel of the house goes back to Victorian times. It's quite a popular one, and it's the ideal woman who was devoted and submissive to her husband and children. Well, let me just say, I'm Sicilian, so this is quite common in my country where I come from. So actually, I relate with this concept quite a lot. Also, Ivana is from Sicily, so this is a little bracket. In this speech, MacPhail turns that idea on its head and makes us laugh. I'm going to turn the stage to Ivana, and we'll hear her words.
It is a fact that all women contribute more than men to marriage. For the most part, they have to change their place of living, their method of work. A great many women today changing their occupation entirely on marriage, and they must even change their name. When I hear men talk about women being the angel of the home, I always, mentally at least, shrug my shoulders in doubt. I do not want to be the angel of any home. I want for myself what I want for other women. Absolute equality. And after that is secure, then men and women can take turns of being angels. I stress the angel part because I remember the last year an honorable member who spoke from the opposite benches called the woman an angel. And in the next breath said that men were superior. They must therefore be gods.
Thank you. It was hilarious, but at the same time, it's sarcastic and so true. I mean, I have lots of stories, or real stories of men acting like that. So, wow. Thank you for this warm and energetic presentation, and it's really fun and engaging. Ivana is an Italian psychologist, soft skills trainer and speaker, and she delivers well-being, communication, and leadership training with MetaMind. She is also the lead for the KeyNote Speakers Training Program. Ivana, how was this speech for you? What do you think about it? Do you share the same thought that I just couldn't hold and I was sharing?
I really enjoyed the speech. I love how Agnes called out any nonsense using her sense of humor. I also love using humor to call out anything that I don't agree with. And as you mentioned before, I also feel connected to this speech because I also share the hate for housework that Agnes shared. And like you, I'm from Sicily, where still women are called to be the angel of the homes. So I can see myself saying exactly the same words to my mom that is also on the call today when I was a little girl, when she was expecting me to be the angel of the home. So it's something really resonates with me.
Yeah, and I cannot keep quiet. I have one man has told me, you have to put me on a pedestal. I mean, because I said that, I looked at him and said, then maybe I'm not the right girl for you. You can look somewhere else. So this has really happened about 25 years ago. So it's not so far in time, and it's amazing. And I don't think this has solved. I mean, we are working towards improvements in that sense, but we are still a little bit far. Yes.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So it's been great. Thank you.
Yes. And now let's become serious again. This was a little bit of humor and fun and entertainment. Let's change tone with the next speech. Let's wait for the slide. So the next speech is from Lillian Wald, Crowded Districts in Large Cities, 1896. Lillian Wald was an American nurse. She is known for her contributions to human rights and was the founder of American Community Nursing. She founded the Harry Street Settlement in New York City in 1893, a place that offered nursing, education, and community services for the immigrant population. She was an early advocate to have nurses in public schools settlement house founder and an extraordinary activist on behalf of the immigrants and the poor. She used her voice to speak often, to give testimony, to speak at commissions and conferences, advocating for public health services and assistance to poor and immigrant communities. The Harry Street Settlement House still exists today, serving the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And because of her advocacy, the New York Board of Health created the world's first public nursing system. In today's speech excerpt from a speech she delivered in 1896, Lillian Wald tells exactly what she has seen in the Lower East Side. she describes how great is the need to alleviate the suffering. And she challenges each of us to look inside our own conscience and help our fellow human beings. Over to you, Dalia Feldheim.
Read each figure as a human being, with the strengths and the weaknesses, the good and the bad, the wants and desires common to us all. Read in the sweatshops, factories, long working days, the difficulty, the impossibility of well-ordered living under the condition outlined. Understanding the reading of these things must bring a sense of fairness outraged, the disquieting conviction that something is wrong somewhere, and turning to your own contrasting life, you will feel a responsibility of the how and the why and the wherefore. Say to yourself, if there's a wrong in the midst, what can I do? What is my responsibility? Have you watched the drive of men and women at the machines? Have you watched where the workers were laboring under the indifference and absenteeism of their employer? You cry out against the inhumanity of it all. There's a higher, juster appeal that your sins of responsibility will make to you. If the homes are poor, build new homes, not as charities, but as investments that pay out in every way. Listen to the cries that come from crowded districts. The people are patient and not demanding much. It is work and the sufficient pay for it. That is their just demand.
Thank you. So from a woman's advocate to another, that was Dalia Feldheim. Did I pronounce your name correctly, Dalia? So woman's advocate. Dalia is the founder of Flow Leadership Consultancy. She draws on her own extensive corporate leadership experience and her passion for championing others to enable organizations promote a more authentic, happy, and psychologically safe working culture. Dalia is on a mission to share her insights and learning, successes, and struggles to help shape the new generation of leaders. Dalia, a question for you. What would you like me to ask her? How was this speech for you, Dalia?
Well, I think, thanks, Dana. So Lillian Wald was a Jewish immigrant of German origin, like myself, and she speaks of a concept that in Hebrew is called tikkun olam, which translates as the mending of the world. And it talks about the responsibility that we all have to take care of those less fortunate. Now, she talks also about the concept of empathy and the indifference of the employer. In my recent TED Talk, I talk about the importance of empathy and encouraging leaders, both men and women, to connect to that empathy and dare to lead more like a girl. So amazing voices of the past reminding us the importance of empathy. It was a huge pleasure being here. Thank you, Dana and all.
Yeah, thank you. And it was so inspiring to hear also your feedback. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to thank you all for the attention and the participation. I haven't had the time to look at the chat. I'll read the comments later. We are going to take a break for 5 minutes, although I wouldn't want to leave. I'm enjoying this so much, but I have to give a break. There will be a 5-minute break. And you have two options. You can just join a breakout room that Anna is going to set up for you for 5 minutes networking, or you can use this as a break if you want to stand up for a while and drink something, and we want you back. So don't disconnect, leave it there, just switch your camera off, and then when we are ready, we go back in 5 minutes, and Valerie will continue this event and she will accompany you in this journey. Thank you so much. It was really an honor and such a pleasure for me to be your host. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone, to the second half of the event. I hope you enjoyed the first part and we have more wonderful speeches coming up. I'm Valerie, your host for this segment. So please keep the chat ongoing to support the speakers. And then we'll go on for this afternoon, hear more wonderful speeches. I believe we all miss traveling a little bit. So let's do a little digital traveling this afternoon to these Asia Pacific countries to hear these speeches from these places and also to listen to women leaders who are renowned in their own field. First up, let's travel to the land of rising sun, Japan. We have Toshiko Kishida, who was among the very first Japanese feminists. She grew up in Kyoto, and as a girl, she stood out for her public speaking skills. She became part of a wave of feminists pushing for reform, for greater opportunities to gain new heights and freedom. Then she went on a national speaking tour sponsored by the Liberal Party. She gained fame and notoriety for her speeches on the status of women, especially as an advocate for women's education. This speech today is one of her most famous speech from 1883, Daughters in Boxes. It's a candid critique of Japanese society and its treatment of girls. After making the speech, she was arrested, tried, and fined for making a political speech without a government permit. Thankfully, this is not happening today. So let's start with a warm welcome to Shital Mira to deliver Toshiko Kishida, Daughters in Boxes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is the daughters of middle-class families and above who are often referred to as such. Why such an expression? Because these girls are like creatures kept in a box. They may have hands and feet and a voice, but all to no avail because their freedom is restricted. Unable to move, their hands and feet are useless. Unable to speak, their voice has no purpose. Hence the expression. It is only for daughters that such boxes are constructed. Parents who make these boxes do not mean to restrict their daughters' freedom. Rather, they hope to guide their daughters along the correct path towards acquiring womanly virtues. Therefore, it is out of love for their daughters that the parents construct these boxes. Or so we are told. But if we look at the situation more closely, we cannot help question whether it is truly love for the daughters that the parents have. For do they not cause their daughters to suffer?
Thank you very much, Shital. That was a very beautiful rendition. Wow, I was very touched. Yeah.
Thank you.
Shital is India's leading executive presence coach for business leaders. With over 20 years of experience, she has worked with 700 CXO and staff performance, helping them to enhance their executive presence. I can feel that from your speech today.
Thank you.
Could you share your key takeaways from this speech?
You know, it's so interesting. The speech is about 140 years old. And when I read the speech, I thought to myself, so much has changed, and yet so little has changed. Asian cultures, including India, as well as several other cultures, put daughters in boxes. And I think it's a very moving speech. And I hope that anybody who delivers it 100 years from now doesn't say the same thing that I say, which is so little has changed. So keep up the spirit.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Shital. Yeah. During one of my breakout rooms also, we said the same thing, that the speeches was 100 years old. We, a woman of today, must change it. Not another 100 years, we say the same speech. We will with a different speech. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. From Japan, let's travel back to home ground Singapore. Not the modern day one, but to 1950s, when unfortunately Singapore woman was considered second-class citizen. And that was when Chan Choi Seong would fight for Singapore women's rights. She was a pioneering Singapore politician and campaigner for women's rights. A politician, a mother, and leader of women, which she was trailblazer for these three parts for Singapore women then. She joined the People's Action Party, the current government, when she was only 23 years old. She was one of the first 5 women elected to Legislative Assembly in 1959. She formed women subcommittees in the PAP branches and led the PAP Women's League. Within the assembly and up against a male-dominated one, Madam Chan added her voice and campaigned hard for drafting and passing of Women's Charter that essentially put husband and wife on an equal footing before the law. Sadly, she passed away in 1981 at a young age, but was much honored later on. In 2005, she was added to the Wall of Fame by Singapore Council of Women's Organization. And in 2014, she was finally inducted into Singapore Women's Hall of Fame. We also have a very honored speaker today, is Mini Venkatachalam, to deliver Chan Choi Seong Singapore Women's Charter Bill 1.
The fundamental principle of the Women's Charter is to enable women to have their rights safeguarded by legislation and to give people far-reaching stability in marriages. The marriage system provides for monogamy to enable both the husband and wife to enjoy equal status in their matrimonial life. The passing of this Women's Charter will not only enable women to be safeguarded in law, but also bring about a revolutionary change in society on a practical basis. On this side of the house, I wish to point out that the fundamental principle of this Women's Charter is twofold. The problems of women are the result of an unreasonable society. Men take women as pieces of merchandise. The inhuman feudalistic system has deprived women of their rights. Men could have 3 or 4 spouses. Men are considered honorable, and women are considered mean. Women in our society are like pieces of meat put on the table for men to slice. We cannot allow this inequality in the family to exist in this country. We will liberate women from the hands of the oppressor. With the passing of this legislation, women can contribute their part to the country.
Thank you very much, Mini. Mini is the Regional Director at WeConnect International, a global non-profit network that helps generate market access opportunities for women's business enterprises in over 125 countries. She has also been awarded the Singapore Women's Weekly Great Woman of Our Time Award in the public service and education sector. Congrats to that. Please share, what are your thoughts on reading this history-making bill on Women's Charter in Singapore?
This speech especially means a lot to me because of the work that I do around gender equality. The Women's Charter is still one of the most important instruments for gender equality in Singapore. And in the year of women, this is again very, very timely. It has evolved over time to cover, additional parts of violence against women, personal protection orders, etc. But there is still so much to be done. And reading the speech just reminds me that while we have made some progress since the speech was read so many years ago, there is still so much to be done and such a long way to go.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Let's take the inspiration together and work together to make changes for us women. Thank you very much, Mini.
Thank you very much.
From Singapore, let's travel to Philippines to listen to a speech from a princess. Princess Uruja was a legendary warrior leader from the 14th century. We know about her from the travel writings of explorer Ibn Battuta. Uruja was a warrior princess that led an army composed of both men as well as women. She took part in the fighting herself and fought duels with other warriors. She was ambitious for power and impressed Ibn Battuta with her desire to lead an expedition to India, known to her as the Pepper Country. It's refreshing and inspiring to see a female leader from the 14th century express so much ambition, she mentions in this speech. In the Philippines, she's considered a national heroine. From a Philippine princess to another Filipina, Anna Ong will tell an excerpt of this speech, Woman's Life. The stage is yours, Anna.
You, priest, I have brought you here by my guards because of all your ship's company, you alone scorned my invitation. You have been told all about me. You know that I am the governor of this port in place of my brother because with my army of free women, slave girls, and female captives, all of whom fought just as well as men could, I won a big battle. And you have heard too, I'm sure, that I am still unmarried because I will marry no man except him who shall conquer me. And that all the eligible suitors in this vicinity are afraid to try for fear of being beaten by a girl. Now tell me of great India, which we know as the pepper country. I want to hear all about it. The little I know has fascinated me. Would there be a chance if I should go to war with India of my getting it? Its great wealth and great forces attract me.
Very great, Anna. I love your setup and your get up for all this speech. Anna Ong is the creator and host of What's Your Story Slam, a live storytelling show here in Singapore. She helps people find and tell their stories. So Anna, with your heritage from Philippines like Princess Uduja, how does this speech resonate with you?
Oh, I love her. I think she's like incredibly feisty. Like when Dana recommended that I look into her speech, it was like I fell in love. Like I think I like read her speech to several of my male friends, and they go like, "Yeah, she kind of sounds like you." And I think it's also very refreshing for a woman in the 14th century to seek for her equal in the time where I think when the Spanish came, women were trained to think that they were submissive and lesser. So it's refreshing to find someone who always considered herself equal with men.
Yes, well said, well true. Yeah. Thank you very much, Anna. Let's fly down to the land of down under. Any guesses where we are going next? Yes, to Australia. We talk about Jessie Street, a campaigner and activist for the rights of women and Indigenous people in Australia. She was an active politician for more than 50 years. She campaigned for the women's vote, for gender equality under the law, and against discrimination of Indigenous people. When the United Nations was founded in 1945, Jessie Street became Australia's only female advisor to her nation's delegation. And she fought for the inclusion of gender as a non-discrimination clause in the UN. Her focus was on real day-to-day equality, and that meant an end to discrimination against women in the workplace, in the law, and in the public office. She was passionate about women's right to economic independence, and this can be heard from her speech. So let's hear it from Batya Salman to deliver Jessie Street's speech. Please welcome her.
Thank you, Valerie. There's a good deal of talk now about what they're going to do with women after the war. Must they be made to return to the home? Are they going to take them out of the factory, the office, off the land? To me, this sort of discussion is very disquieting. It makes me think we've already forgotten the reasons why we're fighting this war. Surely we don't mean liberty and democracy for men only. Women should be permitted to choose what they want to do. I believe that in a democratic, free society, men and women should receive equal pay and equal opportunity. That home life should be made less of a tie, and the burden of raising a family be lightened.
Thank you very much, Badya. That was a very powerful speech. It really touched me. And I hear you equality for men and women in terms of pay. Yep. Badya is a chartered accountant and licensed financial advisor with over 23 years of international banking and financial services experience. And she is currently a partner at St. James Place Wealth Management. Badya, please share your thoughts on this speech that you read.
Well, this was a perfect speech for International Women's Day 2021 with the theme of Choose to Challenge.
Yep.
This speech spoke all about women's rights to choose. The speech was all about equal pay and equal opportunity. Jessie Street, the author, was extremely passionate about women's rights to economic independence. And this is something that I resonate with both personally and professionally. And for me, I'm committed to supporting and educating women on financial independence, financial empowerment, and financial well-being.
Thank you. This speech is really yours. Yeah, you really showed very well and passionate. Thank you very much, Badya.
I love delivering it.
Thank you very much. Next up, we'll hear some speeches from women who are leaders in their field. We have Mariah Mitchell. She was an extraordinary, brilliant scientist, and even more brilliant teacher. Even though she had no university degree, she was given a professorship at the prestigious Women's College, Vassar, in New York. She became a beloved teacher who taught science and astronomy. Literally, for generations after she passed away, the astronomy department at Vassar was renowned because of all the talent she attracted and nurtured. At a time when women was excluded from many formal avenues and discouraged from pursuing the sciences, Mariah Mitchell's role as a champion of women in science was one of her greatest accomplishments. She was also one of the founders of the Association for the Advancement of Women and served as its president. In that role, she gave many lectures, including this one we are hearing today. From a speech, she delivered it to the association in 1875. Please welcome Evelina Camilleri, my co-host today, to deliver Mariah Mitchell's The Need of Women in Science.
In our inquiries, in regard to the opportunities afforded to women for the study of science, we are not surprised to find them meager and unsatisfactory. An account which comes to me from one of the large cities of New York must be too strongly expressed, and yet it is somewhat true of any town. The writer says, if an unfortunate female should happen to possess a lurking fondness for any special scientific or literary pursuit, she is careful to hide it as if she would with some deformity. Does anyone suppose that any woman in all the ages has had a fair chance to show what she could do in science? When I see a woman put an exquisitely fine needle at exactly the same distance from the last stitch, which that last stitch was from its predecessor, I think what a capacity she has for an astronomical observer. Unknowingly, she is using a micrometer. Unconsciously, she is graduating circles. And the eye, which has been trained in the matching of worsteds, is specially fitted for the use of prism and spectroscopes. The laws of nature are not discovered by accident. Theories do not come by chance, even to the greatest minds. They are not born of the hurry of daily toil. They are diligently sought. They are patiently waited for. They are received with cautious reserve. They are accepted with reverence and awe. And until able women have given their lives to investigation, it is idle to discuss the question of their capacity for original work. And I'm done.
Thank you very much, Evelina. That was a beautiful rendition. Evelina is a marketing communications manager working for ST Microelectronics. She's passionate about women empowerment, brand, community outreach projects, as well as theater. Evelina, as a woman working in semiconductor, which is a male-dominated industry, what are your views on this speech?
Well, first of all, I have to say I loved this speech for many, many reasons that I would need to write a little article about that. But I will say that first of all, I wanted to become an engineer myself, but I was a woman, I was a girl, and my dad said, how about you try something first, and then if you still want to do that later on, you do that. Well, I graduated in foreign languages and literature because that was what I had studied for. So I never became an engineer. And I joined a semiconductor company where there are only engineers. It's full of engineers. I'm a minority. And they're all men. Most of my colleagues are men. So that is really what makes me a little bit frustrated. I mean, all these years. But I'm trying to manage about that. So this is still so true today. One little thing, because I know we are running out of time, what we can do, I mean, this speech resonated a lot with me because girls must be given an opportunity to be exposed to scientific topics, education. And what is missing is that girls don't have a role model, a female role model to inspire them. So this is what I feel has been missing for me, and I hope this gap will be covered for the next generations.
Yes, I agree with you too. And you are inspiring too. You work in a male-dominated place, and you're actually breaking the glass ceiling already, Evelina. So I'm proud of you. Thank you so much for your speech.
Thank you.
Next, we will hear on a woman leader in the environmental field. Wangari Maathai was a passionate advocate for the environment and a political activist from Kenya. Born in a rural village when she went on to receive advanced degrees, she became an expert in veterinary anatomy. Along the way, she became aware of the extreme environmental degradation that was harming her country. She came up with the idea of planting trees, encouraged women across Kenya to plant tree nurseries. Over time, she developed it into a broad-based grassroots organization, focused on conserving the environment and improving quality of life in Kenya. That became known as the Green Belt Movement. In 2004, she was the first woman from Africa to receive the Nobel Peace Prize for contribution to sustainable development, democracy, and peace, and the first environmentalist to receive it. She used her public voice to speak often, and this speech we are hearing today is one of her favorite, an expression of a philosophy of how to live in the world. So let's give a big welcome to Sophia Norgen to read an excerpt of this speech, The Story of the Hummingbird.
I'm gonna share a story about the small hummingbird. It was this big fire in a big forest, and all the animals, they escaped the fire, and they were helpless, and they felt overwhelmed, and they were paralyzed. And except this small hummingbird, she was saying, I'm gonna do something about this fire. And she was flying towards the nearest lake and took a small drop of water and was flying to the fire and left the drop of water there and went back to the lake and got some more water and back and forth and back and forth. She was working as fast as she could. And the other animals were saying, for example, the elephant was saying, what do you think you are doing? You're wasting your time. The fire is too big and you are too small. Your wings are too small. Your beak is too small. What do you do? And the hummingbird was saying, I'm doing the best as I can.
And that is the message of this story and metaphor. If we all can do our best we can be a change of the world to a better world.
Thank you very much, Sophia. I really love your costume today. You really look like a queen on the stage today. A fun fact with Sophia, she actually has been a moderator in the City Hall where the Nobel Peace Prize was held. Sophia has been in the health industry for over 25 years, visiting over 100 workplaces. Her passion is to help companies reach a sustainable health. Hi, Sophia. Please share with us, what are your thoughts on this speech?
I am impressed by her in many ways because she's well educated. She's been in different countries. She's a role model, a leader, and her message is very clear, and that is still today. There are many people who are not having the courage, they feel overwhelmed or helpless to do something, but she encourages us to be a leader, to do as best as we can, and that is also, I want to be a leader, a role model for other women or everyone to us. And she's a queen, so I inspire you and me to shine as a queen, right? To be a role model in this world. That is why I love her. And I'm happy to be part of this event as well, yes.
Yes, so true, wonderful, well said, Sophia. Yeah, I love your crown and get up. Really channeling the speech very well. Thank you very much, Sophia.
Thank you, thank you.
It's a bittersweet moment at this time because we're at our final speech. So fast, time flies. The last up, the speech is from a leader in the field of law. Laila Saif is an Indian jurist and intellectual. She was the first woman to top the bar examinations in London in 1957 at the age of 27, with a newborn son, in fact. She was the first judge of the Delhi High Court and became the first woman Chief Justice of Himachal Pradesh. She was a member of the 15 Law Commission of India and co-authored the report suggesting amendments to the Hindu Succession Act, giving equal rights to daughters in joint family property. She was also a member of the 2012 Justice Verma Committee, which was constituted in the aftermath of the horrendous rape in Delhi. A campaign for gay rights in India was a powerful act of support of her son and also for about 2.5 other million Indians at a time when homosexuality was illegal in India. And we have Kamudi Goda, who is a lawyer herself, to deliver the speech. A mother and a judge speaks out. Let's welcome her.
My name is Leela Seth. I'm 83 years old. I have been in a long and happy marriage with my husband Premo, and I have 3 children. The eldest Vikram is a writer. Now he's also a criminal, an unapprehended felon. This is because, like millions of other Indians, he is gay, and last month 2 judges of the Supreme Court overturned a judgment that decriminalized homosexuality in India. Now, once again, if Vikram falls in love with another man, he will be committing a crime, punishable by imprisonment for life if he expresses his love physically. The Supreme Court judgment means that he would have to be celibate for the rest of his life, or else leave the country where he was born, to which he belongs and which he loves more than any other. What is harmful is the spirit of the judgment, untempered by any sympathy for the suffering of others. The reasoning that justice based on fundamental rights should only be granted if a large number of people are affected is constitutionally immoral. What makes life meaningful is love. The right that makes us human is the right to love. To criminalize the expression of that right is profoundly cruel and inhumane. Premo and I brought our children up to open their hearts and minds, to admit their errors frankly, however hard that might be, to abjure cruelty and to repair in a willing spirit any unjust damage they have done to others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, KG. That was an awesome delivery for the last speech of the afternoon. KG is the co-chair for KeyNote Women Speaker Directory, as we all know her, and co-founder of the Inclusive Leaders Institute. She has been featured in Financial Times London, the Asian Entrepreneur, and Times of India. Besides being a lawyer, she's also a human capital strategist, speaker, coach, trainer, and facilitator. KG, as one of the organizers of this event, and you went through all these wonderful speeches, right? What do you think of the speech you chose?
It was very hard finding speeches by women of color, particularly speeches that spoke to the values I firmly believe in, which is that all of humanity needs to overcome their differences and come together. Justice Leela Seth is amazing because through her life as a jurist, she fought for the rights of women. She ensured that girls in India had the same right to inherit joint family property just as the sons of the family did. When she was in the Law Commission looking into the rights of women, she ensured girls and working professional women in India had more rights. But she staked her entire legacy as a beloved jurist at the grand old age of 83, when she didn't have to lose anything, right? She didn't have to risk anything, but she did because she believed that her son and 2.5 million other LGBT plus Indians deserved their rights that were being so cruelly denied to them. That's why I really, really feel privileged to have delivered her speech today. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, KG. Yeah, that's a very powerful rendition and so much closer to home. Yeah, thank you so much. So we are at the end of this afternoon. I would like to invite Florence to do the closing speech for this afternoon.
Thank you. Wow, this was simply amazing. I don't know you, but I feel empowered by all the speakers and speeches I've heard today. Last year, I was one of the lucky ones to be part of the Women Keynote Speaker Directory training in Singapore. And I can only encourage all the women in the audience to consider to speak up and join us to bring diversity to the stage. We all have a story to tell, and our experience and speeches can make a difference. Just think about the changes that brought the speeches we heard today in our global history. So thank you. Thank you to all the great speakers for their talents. Thank you, Dana, for the idea and the amazing speeches. Thank you to our team for all the amazing work, for putting the time, effort, and heart in this. KG, our co-chair of KeyNote Women Speaker Directory, Minoli, Evelina, Anna, Valerie, Leslie, Lisette, and of course, thanks to Mette, our chair of KeyNote. And thanks to the wider KeyNote teams as well, our regional leaders in the US, in Europe, marketing team, partnership, training, our office manager, Ishba. And thanks again to all the speakers, volunteer, and audience. Have all a wonderful month of celebrating women. Thank you.